Before we begin, if you value serious, source-driven history that connects past survival decisions to the present, subscribe to the Survival Record. This channel exists for people who want to understand why old solutions still matter. Most people think of World War II home defense as something temporary. Sandbags piled in front of windows, blackout curtains, civilians nervously watching the sky. What's often missed is that some defensive measures designed for invasion did not disappear when the war ended. They proved so structurally sound, so psychologically effective, and so adaptable that they quietly outlived the conflict itself. One of those defenses still sits outside government buildings, along coastlines, at military bases, and increasingly in civilian spaces, meant to stop modern intruders. It was never glamorous, rarely photographed up close, and almost never explained. Yet it worked then, and it works now for the same reason. It exploits physics, not firepower. What looks crude today was once a calculated answer to a terrifying problem. The object is commonly called the Czech hedgehog, though it appeared under different names across Europe. At first glance, it looks unsophisticated. 3 steel beams welded together at right angles, forming a jagged, immovable shape. To a modern eye, it can resemble industrial debris or minimalist sculpture. During World War II, it represented something far more serious, a response to the realization that traditional fortifications were failing. By 1939, European militaries had learned that concrete walls and trench systems could be bypassed, bombed, or neutralized faster than they could be reinforced. Tanks, not infantry columns, were the primary threat. The question was no longer how to stop soldiers, but how to stop armored vehicles from entering cities, ports, and civilian spaces that had never been designed as battlefields. The Czech hedgehog was not meant to destroy tanks. It was designed to immobilize them. That distinction mattered. A disabled tank blocking a road could halt an entire armored column behind it. Firepower became irrelevant once movement stopped. The design succeeded because it assumed things would go wrong. One reason this device endured is that it was engineered for failure scenarios. It did not require precision placement. It did not rely on electricity, fuel, or coordination under fire. It worked whether it was upright, partially buried, or knocked sideways by impact. The geometry ensured that at least one beam would always face upward. When a tank attempted to drive over it, the hedgehog lifted the vehicle's tracks off the ground or exposed its vulnerable underside. Even if the tank did not flip or stall completely, it lost traction. In muddy or coastal environments, the problem worsened. Crews often had to abandon vehicles under threat of artillery or air attack. This was not theoretical. German forces encountered hedgehogs along the Atlantic Wall, in Eastern Europe, and in urban choke points. Allied forces later used them as well, particularly during defensive pauses. They were cheap to produce, difficult to remove under fire, and effective without supervision. Home defense during World War II was never just about soldiers. What often gets overlooked is where these obstacles were placed. They were not limited to front-line defenses. Hedgehogs appeared near factories, bridges, residential districts, and ports, places where civilians lived and worked. Governments understood that invasion would not respect military boundaries. Urban penetration was a real possibility, especially in the early years of the war. Home defense in this context meant slowing an enemy long enough for response forces to mobilize or evacuations to occur. This reframes how we think about civilian preparedness. These obstacles were passive defenses integrated into everyday spaces. They did not require training to operate. They existed to buy time, not to win battles. That mindset, delay, disrupt, survive, still defines effective security planning today. After the war, no one bothered to remove what still worked. When the war ended, many hedgehogs were scrapped. Steel was valuable, and cities wanted to move on. But a surprising number were left in place, especially along coastlines and borders. Some were simply buried or incorporated into new construction. Over time, planners noticed something. These old tank traps still stopped vehicles. Not tanks anymore, but trucks, cars, and unauthorized access attempts. They required no maintenance. They could not be hacked, disabled remotely, or easily bypassed without heavy equipment. As security concerns shifted from mass invasion to sabotage, smuggling, and vehicle-borne attacks, the logic resurfaced. Modern bollards often fail because they are designed for aesthetics first and impact resistance second. Hedgehog-style barriers make no such compromise. Today, variations of the hedgehog appear in high-security zones, worldwide. Some are cast in concrete, others are fabricated from modern alloys. The principle remains unchanged. A vehicle cannot push them aside without lifting itself off the ground or losing control. Speed works against the intruder, not in their favor. The obstacle does not need to identify a threat or decide when to activate. It is always on. This is where survival lessons intersect with history. Many modern security systems rely on detection and response. Cameras, alarms, access control. The hedgehog represents denial. It removes options rather than reacting to them. For survival-minded planners, this is a crucial distinction. Systems that do not rely on power, software, or human judgment tend to outlast crises. During the war, these obstacles sent a message. They signaled that an area was prepared, defended, and not easily penetrated. Tank crews, encountering unexpected barriers, often hesitated, unsure of what lay beyond. That hesitation was exploitable. The same effect exists today. Physical barriers communicate intent. They define space. An intruder confronted with an immovable obstacle must reassess risk, time, and exposure. In many cases, that alone is enough to deter further action. World War II planners understood this intuitively. Defense was not just about stopping an enemy, but about shaping their decisions under pressure. The hedgehog lacks drama. It does not explode, fire, or collapse. It does not feature in heroic narratives. It simply sits and waits. Popular history favors motion and conflict, not obstruction. Yet for the people who relied on these defenses, factory workers, port authorities, city planners, they represented something essential: the acknowledgement that war would reach civilian infrastructure, and that survival depended on preparation rather than reaction. As post-war narratives focused on rebuilding and reconciliation, many of these objects were removed from view, both physically and culturally. What remained was an incomplete understanding of how societies actually defended themselves. The lasting relevance of this defense lies in its humility. It assumes limited resources, imperfect information, and human error. It does not promise total security. It offers resilience. For modern viewers concerned with preparedness, whether for conflict, disaster, or civil disruption, the lesson is clear. Durable solutions are often simple, passive, and unremarkable. They do not rely on ideal conditions. They function under neglect. World War II forced governments and civilians alike to confront uncomfortable realities about vulnerability. Some of the answers they arrived at were inelegant but effective. Ignoring them because they lack spectacle is a mistake. Remembering these defenses means remembering the people they protected. Understanding the Czech hedgehog as more than a relic changes how we view the home front during World War II. It was not passive. It was engineered, calculated, and deeply aware of its own limits. These defenses bought time for evacuations, slowed advances, and protected lives without demanding heroism. They remind us that survival often depends on choices made quietly, long before danger arrives. If you found value in this kind of overlooked history, subscribe to the Survival Record for more in-depth analysis of how past conflicts continue to shape modern survival and security thinking. Share this video with others who care about understanding history beyond the surface.